Much for joining us today. My name is Vicki Townsend, and I'm the founder and president of Divorce Right. And we provide training to HR professionals and to company supervisors about the divorce process so that you can better support your employees. And we provide divorce coaching and case management, providing guidance and direction that your divorcing employees so desperately need. And I want to introduce you to the amazing Paulette Rigo, a certified divorce coach, a certified divorce specialist, a credentialed mediator, and the director of coaching and case management here at Divorce Right. And together we tackle the biggest disruptor in your company, and that's divorce. And as a reminder, we have SHRM credits for your SHRM members, and we will post a link at the end of this broadcast so that you can be sure to grab those. And today we're going to be talking about the hidden cost of divorce to our corporations and to our government by way of additional supportive services. Many years ago, I started to read the research about the cost of divorce by way of lost productivity, absences, errors, distractions, and presenteeism. It was the research paper by Dr. David Schramm, Individual and Social Costs of Divorce in Utah, that made me make the leap to creating Divorce Right, to not only assist the employee going through a traumatic life event like divorce, but to help create healthy and thriving companies by saving them thousands, and in some cases, many multiple millions of dollars each and every year by helping their employees manage a complicated process that anyone outside of the legal system can barely maneuver. So let me introduce you to today's special guest. Known as Dr. Dave on campus and across country, Dave Schramm is an associate professor and family life extension specialist at Utah State University in the Department of Human Development and Family Studies. After graduating with his PhD from Auburn University, he worked as a professor at the University of Missouri for 9 years. Shortly after arriving at USU in 2016, he was appointed by Governor Herbert to serve on Utah's Commission on Marriage, and he now serves as a faculty director on the commission. In 2022, the Utah Marriage Commission launched the Stronger Marriage Connection podcast, and Dr. Dave serves as a host. He appears regularly on television and shares tips and videos on social media and YouTube to help individuals and parents and couples thrive in their life journeys. He's also analyzed the financial public and personal impacts of divorce. From British Columbia to Beijing, China, and from St. Louis to San Diego, Dr. Dave has given over 500 presentations, classes, and workshops to a variety of audiences, including the United Nations and a TEDx talk in Florida. And he's married to his high school sweetheart, Jamie, and they have 4 children. And he just might have a slight addiction to peanut M&Ms. And the Schramm family lives in North Logan, Utah. Welcome, Dr. Dave.
Hey, thanks so much, Vicki and Paulette, for having me on. I'm happy to join you today.
I'm so glad to have you here. Paulette, I'm going to let you get us started today.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Doctor. It's an honor. In fact, Vicki has mentioned your name so many times, I feel like I already know you, but now you're here in the, well, not the flesh, but in the virtual flesh. So I want to start with the obvious question. Now, in my world, it's probably not obvious, but in most people's worlds, right? Whether that be somebody going through divorce or you're a professional in the company or in the HR world, naturally, I mean, most people would say, like, why? Why did you want to study the economic impact of divorce on society and talk about what you found? I find it fascinating.
Yeah, you bet. Thanks for the question. And thanks for having me on today. You know, it started back when I was an undergraduate student, actually, at Brigham Young University. And I'm sitting in a class, it's a community education class, and the professor says, you know what? One of these days, someone needs to do a study on what divorce costs society and what it costs individuals, the state, and governments. And so I raised my hand in that class, and I don't think he was, I think it was more of a rhetorical question. And so I talked with him after class and I would love to do something like that. And so I started on that journey, and it took me actually a few years to get this published. But really, the whole purpose of this is really to be able to show, wow, and the dollar figure isn't as much, whether it's exactly the dollar to the penny or what it is, but it's more to show look, divorce, it's a personal choice, but it can have these economic consequences, these ramifications that really spill over into broader society. And so, yes, it is a personal choice, but it has public consequences. And so that's what happened. I published that, and then I was invited actually to go over to Beijing, China, on this world this conference and talk about my findings over in Beijing to people from all over the world. So that's really where it got started. And then I've done studies what divorce costs the state of Texas, a little over $3 billion in direct and indirect costs. And now I'm actually working on another paper right now, looking at drilling down at the personal, really the personal costs, everything from, we're cutting back on going out to the movies to moving, or what do this additional have to go and take now these classes for our children. So really drilling down to these very specific costs. And so there's these personal costs, there are these broader societal costs, these indirect and direct government costs with programs and TANF and Medicaid that are there to help people. And the topic that I'm excited to talk a little bit about, the spillover into the workplace, and really what the business sector can do to help alleviate and help their employees as they're going through this really stressful process.
I'm glad you brought that up, because there's been many discussions about how divorce affects families, children. I hate to call it the obvious, right? But the ones that we assume are going to impact it, the family unit, the children, perhaps the personal finances of the family, the living situation. But I don't really know that when I went through my situation and seeing that I'm in the trenches with people every day, really think about beyond the micro, right? It's like the family unit gets thought about, but then as you see that it trickles into their work, extended family, and as you said, the broader macro of it all. So it affects every aspect. So now you started this, maybe you didn't start, I'm sure you started it before, but the study was released in 2013, right? So here we are a decade later. Have you found that what has really changed? And I know you have a new project now to discuss more of that shift into the more micro. But what have you seen in the last decade as a shift?
Yeah. Costs all over the place. We've all felt that, especially I would say in the last few years, but we've seen the cost of everything from grocery, eggs, and everything else is increasing. And that has spilled over into even the public sector as well. And so budgets continue to grow larger to be able to pay for things. And so one of the things, because the average cost of divorce back in my study was about $30,000. And again, this is average. And so it's important to point that out, that there's some, if they don't have children, it's very simple, they're young or something, and they can manage those things, and it's not a lot of cost. But the cost, and this as well, the cost for attorneys and mediators, even divorce filing fees. I teach a divorce education class here at Utah State, the online class as well that we developed. So all these resources to help individuals through this difficult process, and it spills over into their children as well. And so I would say that even in the last decade, that's probably even gone up, I would say, by as much as $10,000. And so the average divorce that we're saying now is costing the direct and indirect effects of divorce cost society about $40,000 because of things like lost work productivity that you're talking about, their financial situation. Now, things have changed a little bit, as you both are aware of, and listeners are, specifically with women and their financial situation. So more women in the workforce the last few decades, and so they're not feeling that pinch as much. They still are, both parties, right? Living on one income is more difficult than two. But it continues to grow. Those costs continue to increase.
No, I'm a little curious about the methodology. So the research was originally in Utah, but you also did a study in Texas. Is that true?
Yeah. Yep, that's right. And so what I did is I was able to get a hold of the budgets and say, hey, okay, you know what sectors in Texas, and I think this one it was a little over $3.18 billion, which is about 12% of their budget. You think about that for a second. That's massive. But these are things like housing. This is medical assistance. This is cash assistance. This is food assistance. This is child care and development assistance, utilities. And so all of these areas, because people who experience that divorce and experience a strong, a heavy financial burden are often turn to government assistance and government programs, at least in the interim, at least temporarily, to help them get back on their feet. Now, they'll also turn to family members and extended family members, to parents, to loved ones, to neighbors, to churches. And so I would look and say, okay, what is the ripple effect, and how are those areas being affected, including the business sector as well? Because we know the business, right? They continue to pay a heavy cost as well. I know there's a Harvard Business Review study that showed that divorce costs American businesses as much as $150 billion. The stress-related costs are $300 billion per year, and then the emotional stress related to divorce can account for nearly $75 billion in lost work productivity. So these are big costs that not just the person, but again, this ripple effect that so many are helping to pick up the pieces.
And if I can say, presenteeism isn't even including in there, and Harvard says that's another $150 billion. That's, when you go to work, you can physically show up, but emotionally, mentally, you're checked out. That costs companies a lot of money. And so another thing, we don't think about is that the financial impact on women.
Yes.
Do you have statistics around I believe it's the number one cause of women going into poverty is divorce, correct?
It is still, and it has been for decades, and it continues to be that way, especially women, and then more children that they have, that they, more mouths to feed, to put them in classes and to take them around. That's a stress, an emotional distress. We haven't even gone into the emotional part. This is the fiscal, the financial aspects that spill over. But women are continually, even today, much more likely. They're much higher, more likely to experience the financial costs of that they really bear the brunt of those costs.
Yeah, and it's not an easy fix, but we know that we can make an impact on those numbers by just getting people to be able to just sit and kind of calm down. And if we can bring them the temperature in the room down, we can bring back a more focused employee. So you did a TEDx talk in 2020, that secret sauce to booming business. And I know that it was like the shortest study you've ever done. Why don't you tell us a little bit about that? And because people here are interested in how this affects business.
Yeah, for sure. And so I was at Missouri, and it was just 2 questions, the shortest study that I've ever done. And it was, to me, life is all about, and then fill in the blank. And so even listeners right now, what is it? If you boil it down to like 1 or 2 words, to me, life is all about, and then I had them 1 or 2 words. The second question was, if I died tomorrow, what I would miss the very most would be, and then fill in the blank. And it was interesting as I analyzed the answers to these 2 questions. Now, over 1,300 people all across the United States filled this out. And as I looked at that, really the top question, to me, life is all about, 45% said something about family, right? And it was happiness, it was positivity. And guess what was missing from the list, Paulette and Vicki? 1.2% said anything related to work or money. Now, isn't that interesting? But now, workers are saying, well, wait a second, wait. Okay, now that doesn't mean that people don't enjoy work, that they love I love what I do. But to me, life is not about that. I work to live, right? I don't live to work. And so when HR and other directors and leaders and business managers, when they could really understand, okay, what is it that really means the most to the individuals, to my employees, these people, it's connection, it's relationships. And so that's really what I got thinking, wow, what is it? And how can employers What can they do to help families through the struggles, through their individuals? What can they provide? And so then I started looking at what are the top best places to work in the whole country? What is it? And Inc.com, they do this survey, and it was in 2019. They did 139,000. They just sent this survey out, and all these employees filled this out. And they came up with it was a little over 250 of these top places to work. And then I analyzed, because what happened is the leaders, they had 100 words to describe why we're a great place to work. And so I analyzed each of these 100 word summaries of why this business is a great place to work. And it was really revealing, because what I found was this pattern. So, and I'll also pause that for a second, because in life, we really come down, we have these three core needs that we all have, and that is safety, satisfaction, and connection. And what happened is, as I analyzed these 100 word summaries of what makes their place a great place to work, it was interesting, because I started seeing these patterns of that they provided for their safety, right? Benefits programs. This is 401ks. They're able to provide enough to meet those basic safety needs, emotional safety as well. The second need was satisfaction. So they're doing fun and enjoyable things. They really truly care. It's a fun atmosphere. There's this yearning for learning, for professional development to help them in their lives. So it's very satisfying. And then 3 is connection. These best places to work, they had this fun. It was this team culture. In fact, many of them even use the word family. It feels like family here. And so what happens then, as someone going through divorce, think of those 3 needs again: safety, their emotional safety, and maybe, I don't know how this is going to affect my work. And so that need is threatened. Satisfaction. Life is not fun right now, either at work and at home. I do very little. That I don't go out and go bowling, right, with my friends, going through a really rough time emotionally. And connection, my most important, that connection, that person, my life, that's been disrupted. Maybe my connection with my kiddos, connections at work, connections with friends, my faith base. And so really what happens, someone's experiencing a divorce, they experience a crisis in their safety, satisfaction, and connection. So really the secret sauce to these booming businesses is that they really care about, truly care about their employees, and they treat them like family. And I have 3 suggestions for those who are listening of things that they can do. They find out an employee is really struggling. What can they do? What can they offer? And here's 3 suggestions. Number 1, best thing you can do right off the bat is show compassion. Show compassion. Hold up the emotional mirror and simply reflect before you try to fix anything. Just say, I am so very sorry for the pain and the hurt that you're going through. And so offer compassion. Number 2 is to connect them to possible resources, right? There's employee assistance programs, a counselor, or maybe just a listening ear to come into my office and to share if they need that. But they need to be able to connect to professional resources, maybe, counselor for their kids, something where you can help this employee through this with resources that are available. And third is to be flexible, to be patient through this. Maybe it's remote work, or maybe it's some, extended some deadlines, but to really show that flexibility where possible and help that person through that struggle.
That's awesome. And, it's first of all, well, to everybody that's listening, we would love for a divorce right to be a solution to that, because the difference, I'd love to share the difference between what we do and those other EAP programs is we actually focus on getting them through the process of divorce and help them make some good life choices and of the entire umbrella. That's what's really so confusing, and people just have no security and safety in even making decisions in this process, right? That's scary, because you don't know if you're making the right decision or the wrong decision, right? So we kind of help them with that. So for those listening, we would love to be that option for you. So Dr. Dave, what do you think employers can do to mitigate the costs of divorce, and what can they do to help their employees that are struggling with their marriages?
Yeah, in addition to some of the things I just mentioned, really understanding that, when they're coming to work, what's happening with this emotional, they're just flooded. And we talked about presenteeism and absenteeism and those kind of costs that come there. So being able to have, frequent breaks, to be able to check in, to have maybe work in teams where they have someone there instead of isolation, because with this isolation, what happens is that often times people going through a divorce, at least 3 areas that they really struggle in, and that when they get to work, and that is lack of focus, being able to really stay focused, because again, the brain goes to either the past or the future instead of being right there in the present. And so then what we'll see in number 2 is these increased errors and these accidents. And some of these can have liability with some of these accidents and not being accurate. And then third is this distraction, right? This poor decision making. And so I think it's really helpful to have almost kind of like the buddy system, have someone that they can reach out to help them to answer, and not necessarily someone to kind of, accountability, make sure that they're doing all right, but in a sense, really to help them through this, because there are some struggles, and they're mentally, they're not going to be all there. And so having that compassion, and actually just inviting them into the office and say, hey, what can we do? How can we be helpful? Can we be flexible? Can we help with anything on the side? Some employers may be able to help with, certain fees or certain things, to be able to say, hey, let us help you. Let us help you get back on your feet through this, knowing that it's going to pay really dividends, because this distraction is going to cost them in the long run. So being emotionally available, and then financially available, and then employers can ask themselves this one question, and that's this: if I were to give my whole heart to this employee, what would occur to me to do? And just pause and just wait and just listen, because some of those answers will come there in the moment about what to do and how to act, how to respond, and be a little bit more patient, be slow to react and slow to judge, and just quick to love and to offer that compassion, resources, the divorce right resources, to be able to help them through that process. And as you know, and listeners, divorce is not an event, right? Divorce is a process, the separation that can last months and even years. And so being patient with them through that process.
Yeah, it doesn't end. The problems with divorce doesn't end the moment the decree is even signed. It can last for years beyond that as well, particularly when you've got a very challenging partner that you've been divorced from, the narcissistic personality disorder, things like that make it super, super difficult and really, really challenging. Dr. Dave, thank you so much for this today. You've been so amazing. And I want to remind our listeners today that we do have SHRM credits. We're going to put them below, the link below, for you to get those credits below this video. And just know that divorce is a huge disruptor, not only to your employee going through it, but to your company that they work for. So if you're an HR benefits manager, if you're an HR benefits provider or a consultant, please reach out to us and see if adding our suite of solutions is a good fit for your business. We appreciate you, Dave. Thank you so much for doing this. And I look forward to reading more and more of your research papers, because I am that much of a nerd and I just absolutely love what you do. So thank you for all of the effort on behalf of the entire divorce professional community. I want to say thank you for all of the information that you've provided us in the years. And I look forward to many, many more. So thank you all. And we will see you next week on our next LinkedIn Live. So thank you so much for joining us today. And we are out. Bye for now.